So I'm sure you've seen Mike Benz take on USAID and what USAID was really all about. And his perspective is that it's for everything that's too dirty for the CIA. He's saying USAID. Do you think there can be a rational argument, though, that a lot of these things that seem ridiculous, like sending all this money to influence the votes in Pakistan or in India, and then we look at it like, why are we spending $21 million on education here and $2 million there, and that these things are actually beneficial to the United States as a whole? Because even though we're spending exorbitant amounts of money, the results we're getting is we are maintaining peace by being in control of certain areas where someone else would come over, and then you'd get a regime that's not friendly to our interests.
Yeah. Look, I mean, USAID traditionally, like, they were set up during the Kennedy administration as an independent organization, right? Because at the time, I think that the thinking was, and they're not the only one that set up as an independent agency, but at the time the thinking was we don't want it to be seen as like the U.S. administration is picking and choosing and driving sort of where the money's going, which again is kind of a strange way of doing things, right? It's coming from the U.S. government, right? So people aren't going to parse words or discern somehow that, okay, well, it's an independent agency, so I guess it's not really what the administration wants, it's what the USAID wants. So, is it, were dollars going into programs that the idea was, can we turn this country around? Can we change? Is it who's in charge? Is it Lumumba? Is it Sukarno? Is it, God, pick any number of folks during that period of time, and create a government that's more friendly to our interests? Again, I look at that and go, well, yeah. Is USAID also projecting whatever they call it, soft power, diplomatic power? Well, sure. And that's another way of phrasing it, I suppose. Were they also doing things like feeding the poor, providing medicines out there, doing actually legitimate things that I think sometimes people in a righteous world are like, well, that's exactly what they should be doing. Well, yeah, they should be doing that. We should be. The USAID's got a lot of important programs that they run, right, that actually help people around the world who don't have many options. So
I think what the perspective of this administration has stated is that they're going to review all these programs and keep the useful ones.
Yes.
And I think they're going to run it through the State Department, right? Is that
they're going to run it? Yeah, they're going to slim it down. They've already started. It'll be run through the State Department. Great idea, right? Take off that. Don't pretend, right? I mean, this it's a U.S. government agency. What do you that people are going to assume? Some people will assume the worst, no matter what, right? But yeah, fine. Again, under the same theory that what you do is you go in and you say, we're going to go through every program. We're going to keep the ones that are important, and I would argue that's food aid, health aid, whatever it may be, and can all those others that aren't being really helpful.
You mean like the $251 million on transgender animal studies?
Yeah, is that helpful or not?
Well, they have to figure out how to do those operations.
Yeah, no, I think that, yeah. So is there waste in there? Of course, there's waste, and are there programs in there that were designed?
So it's the baby with the bathwater. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the point. Is I think going in there and calling it all waste and fraud and a criminal organization, I think is not the right messaging. I think that the American public would be fully on board if you simply said, we're going through, we're going to find the waste, we're going to focus on those programs that help people around the world legitimately.
But I think the problem is the people that are opposed to this administration are never going to see the good in anything that comes out, even if it does uncover undeniable fraud. Yeah. I think we're just so dug in now, especially the fog of war post-election, which seems real in this country. This fog of hate on both sides, gloating on the right, and bitterness and anger and hyperbole as to like the extent of what's happening on the left. It's all a constitutional crisis and a destruction of democracy and a real dictator that's in place, and it's all the things that they feared coming into this election now have come to light in their eyes. Yeah.
No, that is the messaging that's gone out. You can see them coalesce around it. I think the first weeks after the election there was confusion and they were going through that grief cycle on the left. But now I think you're seeing that they are coming together on that messaging. I think they're starting to get more focused. They probably understand they'll probably take the House in 2 years, so they're getting their together again. But I think that and on the right side, I think you'd like to think that the gloating is a bit unnecessary, right? You focus on getting done now.
Not only is it not necessary, it's counterproductive.
It's counterproductive, yeah.
And it just fuels the other side.
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's like this should be a uniting time for our country.
Well, you would think that creating a more efficient government would be a uniting concept, right? And I think it could be, but I keep going back to that same thing. I've never been particularly impressed with the messaging, and I get it. When I say that, people always, on the right come after me and go, "Oh God, well that's what makes MAGA. That's what makes Trump is just." And I don't disagree with sort of, again, the benefits sometimes of being disruptive, but I do think that you can't just look at USAID and say it's a big old criminal organization, right? You should be a little bit more. I mean, Kevin O'Leary, you mentioned him earlier. For all of that talk, I guarantee you, if he had a large company, he wouldn't just shit can everything right off the bat. I know maybe that's his implication, but
I think he's talking about failing companies.
Failing companies. When
you take over a failing company that's filled with bloat and waste, you cut more out than even you think is necessary, and then you figure out what you need.
But he would go through. There would be a thoughtful initial review phase in the corporate environment. I think I would argue that even he would do that. He's not just going to pull the pin and throw it in the room and say, okay, now let's see what we actually need.
Well, isn't what this administration has done is putting a pause on everything, and then they're doing an audit of things and then a review.
But that's not the way it comes across in part because the media is not, like you said, they're not going to give them a break, right? So even if they said that that's what we're doing and here's how we're doing it, here are the people on the transition team. I mean, who are the people on Elon's Doge team, right? I mean, can you name half a dozen of them?
Big balls.
Big balls. Okay.
He's
all
famous.
right, fair enough. There's big balls.
There's the kid who deciphered those scrolls from Pompeii using AI.
Yeah.
He's a genius. I mean, it's very interesting because the approach is essentially he's mimicking the approach that Elon used at Twitter. Mm-hmm. Just you're saying, okay, I'm going to cut out 90% of this and see how it works.
Yeah, I just think that, and again, you got to go after the waste, the fraud. Is there bloat? Of course, there's bloat in the government.